Welcome to the Businessmen and Women of Color podcast. I am your host, Ann Austin, and it is my pleasure to bring quality programs to all of you. I am so excited again to be here with another amazing professional speaker who is going to be talking about health and wellness, suicide prevention, and is doing a lot of things for the veterans community. I'm just really excited to have him on this podcast because, you know, in 2018, this is the biggest podcast I've ever had with 75 participants to date. So if you're not on the podcast, this is the platform to be on in season number 4 coming up in 2019. Just in case you didn't know, the purpose of the BMWOC is to not only share our industry information, but we're also encouraging career seekers, you, the working professional, college students, to think about entering their line of work or just being aware of the different trends that's going on with different professions. So be sure to take a moment to visit all of the pages, check out all the participants, listen to their podcasts, and take down some of the great information. Also look at their pages, reach out to them and connect with them so that you can have an opportunity to grow your small business or write the book or maybe even think about or ask a question about what profession that they chose to be in. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to thank our corporate sponsors, Cat Serrano, LLC, Cheryl Wood Empowers, Concern and Learning, Evangelism Radio, Genesis Preferred Solutions, J Coast International, Nels Tax Help, My Financial Home, Power, STCI, and the Student Teacher, along with our other business affiliate partners and sponsors, and everyone who's participating on this podcast to make it a success. So again, today, I'm excited to have this gentleman here because he had actually reached out to me for the Veterans Biz Up Conference that's going to be in August of this year. And his name is Miguel Sierra. Miguel is the founder and owner of Absolute Life, and it's an emphasis on ABS, Salute Life, and is a retired U.S. Army veteran who spent the last 10 years on active duty serving as a behavioral health clinic and non-commissioned officer. He is a suicide prevention coordinator. He's also a provider resiliency program manager. He's also a drug and alcohol counselor and a sex assault victim advocate for the Department of Defense and so many other titles that he holds in his profession. While he was in the Army, he developed a passion for helping and motivating soldiers to excel by providing them with the skills necessary to excel in their careers and by providing them with the tools necessary to make sound decisions. So I want you guys to continue reading on with his bio. And Miguel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for being here. I know that was a whole lot of different hats that you're wearing to help somebody in your business. So why don't you just start with just telling everybody who you are, where you're from, and how did you get into health and wellness as a profession?
Well, I'm from the Dominican Republic originally. Came over to the U.S. when I was 13. Since I was young, started doing mentorship programs when I was in high school for elementary school students. Then I went on to work with high school kids when I was in college and did a lot of work with at-risk youth. So we had like juvenile sex offenders, runaway kids, and you know those kids that usually have problems in the regular school, they will come to our school and we can give them a little bit of special attention to get them through high school. After a while, I joined the Army, where I spent 10 years working as a behavioral health non-commissioned officer. So I ran behavioral health clinics in Virginia, in Missouri, and the last spot was Hawaii. Just through the military, I started doing suicide prevention, which is one of the biggest issues or the realest issues that we have in the Army and the military in general, with soldiers, adjusting to military life and dealing with PTSD and deployments and being away from their families. So I started doing suicide prevention in Fort Belvoir about 8 years ago. And just the more that I did it, the more engulfed that I got in what I was doing, and the more that I saw how much help I was making, how much changes I was making to not only the soldiers, but the installations in general, the way we did suicide prevention and the way we communicated with not only the soldiers, but their families. So the more I did it, the more I loved it. So here I am, retired now, and trying to bring my passion out to the civilian world.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so you covered a lot right there. Let's talk about your specific background in terms of going into the military specifically,
Hmm.
because I know that what you said earlier was that, you just began to kind of get that path, but what are some of the challenges and some of the great things about being in the military? There's people listening here who are probably already military veterans, or maybe folks who are thinking about going into the military. So I
Hmm.
want to take this opportunity to really talk about the importance of military service and what they can do and what they're going to get out of it, and maybe some of the challenges that they're going to face going into it.
Well, for me, I joined the military a little bit late. I was 29 when I joined. And what I learned early on was the Army gave me a sense of structure, a sense of belonging, and a sense of purpose that I had not experienced in any other job that I had. And mind you, I did a lot of work with children that was very meaningful, but on a day-to-day basis, the responsibility put on you by the military, the accountability put on you, or the sense of accountability that the military puts on you, is invaluable to me. Uh, One of the things that was challenging was, having a family and spending time away from them. There are a lot of situations where, I will get a phone call tonight and I got to be 7 in Missouri. I have to be in Texas in 2 days. So now we got to scramble plans, whatever plans we have with the family, and you got kids kind of upset at you. So that communication with your spouse and with your children is key. But it's never easy. You know what I mean? It's just worth it. Now, all the benefits that you get from the military, they took good care of us medically, a lot of morale and welfare events for the families and for the soldiers. So the biggest thing that I learned was, the sense of responsibility and accountability for one another. Your accomplishments do not mean much unless they're shared by everybody else. So the team concept is very much alive in the military. And for me in particular, in my field, behavioral health, it was very important for soldiers to understand that they were accountable for each other. It wasn't just your job and your lane and what you had to do, but you also had to take care and make sure that your battle buddies, your partners, your peers were doing okay, that you took accountability of yourself and that you were doing okay, and know when to take a knee, when to stand up, when to push through, and when to let somebody else take the job from you. And that team effort was the biggest thing that I learned as far as what I'm trying to take from the military now to the civilian world. So yeah, that's about it.
Okay, fantastic. And yeah, and anytime you have a profession, even military, it's always challenging because, like you said, you had to kind of conform to what the rules were and what you had to give up and what you had to take from it. And that's really important to know in any profession. So as you were kind of going into it, I kind of want to switch gears a little bit and talk
Okay.
about absolute life and what your organization does. I know you reached out to me earlier about providing suicide prevention type of sessions. So I want to give you an opportunity to talk about that. And I want to spend a majority of this podcast talking about suicide prevention and the
Okay.
military specifically, because they're pretty much the backbone of keeping our country free. They go out
Hmm.
there and you guys give your lives to make sure that we can afford the things we're affording right now. And so wanted to kind of get your professional expertise on handling veterans who are having issues like suicide or depression or anxiety of that sort, and what absolute life can do for them.
So obviously the military is slightly more at risk than the average population for suicide, and this is because of all the specific stressors that we deal with. From deployment to family stressors. That time away from the families, and a lot of young military folks get married uh, early and rush it, because the truth of it is you make more money if you're married, if you have a family. So a lot of these young soldiers are out here getting married and getting involved in families and having children uh, in a very rushed manner without getting to know each other. Then you have people that, as great as the military is, it's just like any other job or any other walk of life, but you have your good people and you have your bad people, right? So you got some folks that are not the best leaders and create stresses for us um, in a way that's a little bit more impactful than anywhere else. So when you're dealing with all those stressors and when you're wearing the uniform and you think about the fact that your country depends on you, it can be overwhelming. Um, the biggest thing that I would say for military members that are going through depression or are thinking about committing suicide or are just experiencing anxiety or overwhelmness or whatever it is you're not alone, okay? And when it comes from somebody who's been there, when it comes from somebody that has worn the uniform or is in uniform, it's a little bit more easier to break through that wall because, we can relate, all right? So my hope is that as somebody that wore the uniform for 10 years and as someone who on a daily basis dealt with folks with PTSD, TBI, traumatic brain injury, family issues. I used to work for family advocacy, who have been through traumatic events, not only dealing with deployment, but also, you have rape, you have spousal or child abuse or whatever it is, discrimination, all that stuff. We deal with all that stuff in the military. So somebody that has been there and can somewhat relate to the issues or has been there before or has dealt with it before is key. So again, my hope is coming back to this area after I retired, knowing how many veterans live here, because there's DOD jobs and all that stuff, federal jobs, that I can be of assistance and take my job. I mean, I still work in the military over in Fort Belvoir, but I also want to reach out and touch like private companies and organizations that have veterans in their, in their company as employees and help out. Because, what we do, is very much military based, but it helps everyone. You don't have to be in the Army to benefit from a suicide prevention class, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Do you find that it's easy for, not really say easy is not really the right word, but do you find it that it is really hard for military personnel to seek counseling for any type of suicide thoughts or suicide feelings or anxiety? And if so, what would you think would be the reasons?
Yes. And we have that stigma for decades, probably since the beginning of any one of the branches. And the reason for it is, in the military, we work on our presentation, our titles, our ranks, our demeanor, our military bearing carries a lot of weight. And when you present yourself as somebody who might have depression or somebody who might be going through PTSD issues, where they cannot control certain things and they got to step back from the formation and take care of themselves. The old ways was to always call them weak and unreliable, which is not true. So since I've been in the Army, and not just me, obviously, but the military in general, have been trying to really break that stigma down of if you go get help for behavioral health, is it's a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. I remember when I first got to Fort Belvoir, the behavioral health clinic wasn't even in the hospital. It was like a completely different building because, senior leaders would not want to come in to the hospital and be seen waiting in the behavioral health waiting area because of that stigma, because of that fear of their soldiers seeing them and feeling like, they can't trust them or they can't lead them because they're crazy or they're, depressed or suicidal or whatever. But we work very hard in our classes and our trainings and just spreading the word that going to get help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. And just to piggyback off of that, we're actually working right now on a project to spread the same word to the men of color community because, Black and brown men, we go through the same issues as far as the pride and the expectations of us to be strong for our families, for our communities, and we take care of so much that we avoid taking accountability for our own struggles and getting help for our own struggles and issues. So kind of very similar things, but yeah, the stigma is definitely there. I think we made a lot of progress over the last 20 years to break that stigma down, but it's still very much there. You got a lot of old school leaders out there that are still not buying into behavioral health.
Okay. So, what would you advise to military spouses in terms of symptoms of depression? Because a lot of us are walking around depressed, not just veterans. And
Hmm.
I want to broaden the scope a little bit because a lot of times we don't recognize when another person is in a depressive state because they may not show it, but there still
Yeah.
are signs out there. And
Hmm.
so, from your professional experience, or what are some things that the spouses or family members can do to one recognize signs of depression or any type of mental illness, or help them get help or seek help from a professional?
As far as signs, in a nutshell, it would be changing their behavior. So you got somebody that suddenly stops doing things that they usually enjoy doing. Um, you got somebody that might, for example, take pride in their uniform and how they look, how they dress, how they present themselves. Now all of a sudden, not care so much. Even if it's little things like, oh, I don't care that my top is not ironed today. If they've been ironing their freaking top for the last 20 years, 15 years, and now today, all of a sudden, that's not important to them, something might be off. And I'm kind of sitting here thinking about things that they can see at home. Um, if I come home every day and I play with my children, and now I'm starting to come home and I just want to go to my room and watch Sports Center, for example, that's a change in my behavior. That's changing my values. That's changing what you see as important. You also can have folks who are more irritable. Okay, depression doesn't always show up as you know the sad puppy eyes and I don't want to do anything. It can show up as anxious. It can show up as anger. It can show up with blowouts. It can show up as you just not taking care of yourself the way you used to, while keeping a smile on your face. But um, the thing and I always tell people this, that the biggest thing you're looking for is a change in that person's routine, a change in their behavior, and a change in the things that they value, their core values. For example, myself, I like to be on time for everything. So like today, before the podcast started, I was sitting here getting everything ready at about 7:15. I had to be here 7:15, ready to
It
call
had to
you.
be on time.
Right, you know what I'm saying? So, and my wife knows that. So if my wife would have came in here and saw that it was 7:25 and I'm still downstairs making a sandwich, and it's 5 minutes of my podcast, she should have been like, "Hey man, something's going on with this guy," because it's
Yes.
that change in how I do things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's hard to say, like, everybody's not gonna have the same symptoms. You got some stuff that is similar, but everyone is different and everyone is unique and everyone goes through their own struggles in their minds and they react to it very differently. Some of the other things is giving away possessions, not because you want to get rid of them, but it's a way of saying goodbye. If I'm going to kill myself and I appreciate you, I'm not going to go tell you, hey, listen, I want to say goodbye because I'm going to kill myself tomorrow. No, but I might give you a card or I might give you something, a necklace that I have or a watch or something that's meaningful to me so that you can remember me by. Talking about death, just saying things like, man, I wish I was dead. I can't take it anymore. Things like that can be a sign of suicide. And I know, sometimes living in D.C., man, you be driving and and you feel like, I can't take this no more, and you get angry. That's just normal, right? But sometimes you gotta listen very carefully for those signs and the things that people are saying, because they can tell you they're feeling suicidal, and you just miss it. All right. So
Wow.
so yeah, changing their behavior is the main thing, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that because I know that this get talked about so many different times, but
Mhm.
many often, like you said, we end up missing it because we're just kind of looking at it, okay, they just said that. And, they probably don't mean it or they don't believe that, their partner or their friend or family member might be going through a depressive state. It's just one of those things that's
Mhm.
like in the back of your mind. But with
Mhm.
the rise of mental illness in America right now, I really want people to hear what you're saying in terms of the little things
Mhm.
that can really stick out like a sore thumb if you're really paying attention. And this can be anyone, your child, your spouse, your family member, a coworker. It could be anyone that, you just have to read between the lines
Yep.
nowadays with everybody because not only are they trying to commit suicide, but they're trying to take other people with them. I don't understand the
Yeah. Yeah.
psyche of that. I don't think anyone would understand the psyche of that, but I think for veterans particularly, they are literally, you guys are literally going out there and seeing things and doing things that we ourselves that sit back at home watching TV, drinking or eating pizza, you know, are not exposed to. And so
Mhm.
you guys come back and you carry that because I have a son who also carries it. I have an uncle and a grandfather and other family members who've come back with PSTD and other, mental challenges.
Mhm.
And it is a lot to overcome. It's a trauma. And so that's why I really wanted to have you on this podcast because it is really important for people to understand the veteran mindset
Mhm.
when they're coming home for the first time. And I don't think anyone has really talked about that. Maybe you could share your experience of when you finally said, "Okay, I'm home. I'm out of harm's way now." How did you feel after that, and what that really like meant to you to just be out of that situation?
Well, let me make sure that I say this first. Everyone's deployment experience is unique, also.
Hmm.
So what I'm gonna say, and I'm gonna try to, quote unquote, generalize it as much as possible, but with the understanding that everyone's experience is different.
Yes.
When you're downrange, when you're deployed, the first couple of weeks, first couple of months are very difficult because you are still thinking about what you left behind. You know, and nowadays you can Skype, you can have conversations and talk to your loved ones, through even FaceTime. And I'm deployed, and my wife tells me that the car is acting up, or that the drain is clogged or something like that, and I'm 4,000 miles away and I can't help it. Sometimes that can be very difficult to accept, the fact that your family needs you, but you're over here helping, defending your country. Now, at some point, you realize that you have to be in the moment. You have to be present 100% in the war, in the wartime environment, because if you don't, you might not make it back home. So your alertness level goes all the way up, and you start focusing on your surroundings just so you can make it back to your family. So after 9 months, 12 months, sometimes 15 months of that, when you come back, it's very difficult to just turn that off. you know. And mind you, your family has kept you alive for, throughout the deployment. And now you come home and you realize that you weren't the only person deployed. Your spouse was deployed too, because while you were over there trying to come back to them by staying alive, they had to adjust to you not being there. And sometimes that reintegration to your family is very difficult. Or coming back after having brothers and sisters, you spend every day with for the last 12 months, and now you come back and you guys go your separate ways. And now you say you don't have a family, and now you're in your apartment alone, but you have all this free time in your hands that you don't know what to do with. That can be very difficult. And to accept that the reintegration part is very slow, and is very, you have to be very patient, especially with your children and with your spouse and with yourself, and understand that you just came from war, and that your family might not need you right there at the moment to be engaged in everything and fixing stuff and doing stuff. They just want you there. I hope I'm making sense with that one, because
Oh, absolutely.
it one.
Absolutely. I mean, what you said was very powerful because I don't think a lot of us I'm talking about family members who do not have military families, okay?
Hmm.
Or people, if they do, they don't see this side of it, because what you said was very profound, is that not only are you deployed, but your family is deployed, and then you
Hmm.
come back, and for us being at home, it's like, okay, you home, things are going to go back to normal, but it's not back to normal for you. Because, it's different. Like you said, there's a whole new atmosphere that you had to conform
Hmm.
to, and now you're going to come back and it's totally different. And sometimes, like you said, it could be estranged. Sometimes it could be awkward. Sometimes it could be, I know that when my son came back, it was very different for him. His whole demeanor, everything had been changed. His whole mindset had been rebooted. You might as
Yep.
well say.
Yep.
And it was very hard for him to differentiate between civilian and military. And everything was like, in the military, they said, in the military, they said, he was just stuck
Hmm.
there. And for me, helping him transition, it was difficult because I'm thinking of, okay, this is my son. I'm going to help him out. And he's thinking, I have a whole new world in my brain right about now. I
And
don't understand what
that's
you're
very
saying.
real. That's
Yes.
very real. He's not thinking that he does have a new world. When you go over there and you experience death firsthand,
Hmm.
where there is you trying, you go through things over there where you got to put, engage in firefights, and that's not easy, okay? Or whether it's you working like me, working in hospitals, and we got to receive casualties, man. Seeing somebody die in your hands,
Mm.
somebody that's your friend, somebody that's your battle buddy, we take that very serious, and you can take it to heart. And while you're deployed, again, there's no time to grieve. You know what I mean? So you got to keep moving just so you can stay alive. So when you come
Right.
home and that noise comes down,
Right.
all those demons and all those thoughts and all those memories come back,
Mhm.
and now you're trying to process them all at the same time,
Right.
along with reintegrating yourself back to society and back to into your family. And your kids are gonna look at you differently because daddy left or mommy left a certain way, and now here they are looking a little bit more tan, a lot skinnier, a lot more. Their eyes are different because of what they've seen. So it's not easy. Like, coming back from a deployment, it's not easy for not just the soldier, but the family members also, parents, close friends, everybody, because it's a life changer.
Right. And that's why I really wanted to bring this home, because this brings me right into the next segment about absolute life and what
Mm-hmm.
you provide. And just like all the other health and wellness organizations out there,
Mm-hmm.
you have that ability to kind of catch them when they first come out and help them with their transition, right? So talk a little bit about absolute life and what you provide for veterans in their transitional stage.
The biggest thing we do is, again, relate to them. Give them a space where they feel like when they talk, we understand. A lot of vets are very reluctant to talk to people that have not been in the military because they feel like they don't understand. So when I come in and I can understand what they're saying, and my responses are going to be very familiar to them, and I use their language, okay? It's very welcoming and comforting. Um, so it's really, for me, it hasn't really been anything more than, I was retired on a medical retirement, right? So what I did was I came out of the army and I felt very lost. My career was cut short because of injuries, and I felt like my mission wasn't done. So I brainstormed, and I said, well, especially in this area, I can go ahead and keep doing my mission because there's so many veterans out here working in the civilian force that might not feel like they're being heard or understood, and I can provide that help, and at the same time helping folks that are, you know, not military related, because I dealt with a lot of DoD civilians also, and our workshops work for them also. So the biggest thing that we provide is a sense of familiarity. A lot of classes that I taught on suicide prevention are very much like a bunch of PowerPoints, and they tell you do's and don'ts and stuff like that. It's not very personable, and we make it personable. What I always say is that I don't teach the class, okay, because suicide prevention, helping somebody that's suicidal, is something we all have in us. As human beings, we have it in us to help each other out. So all I do is really bring that out of people and help them realize that they have the power already in them. They know what to do already. I just gotta remind them or put it to the forefront in their brain so they know how to react when they see it. Um, so that's what we do. And again, 8 years doing it in the army, and I was very successful in what I did, mainly because of my passion for it. I love helping people. I love when somebody stops me in the street and says, "Because of you, I didn't kill myself." I mean, I don't know, but that for me is like the biggest high in the world, you know. So I just want to keep doing my mission. That's all.
Fantastic. So, do you have any workshops that you want the listeners to know about? Because I think it's really important that you share, or if you have any, like places they can go to where they can find you, reach out for your services, and really feel like that they're getting help for whatever it is that's bothering them, or maybe you can kind of refer them to other services. So, how can they find you in terms of workshops and events?
Okay. Well, the first thing I do always is let them know about the national the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline phone number, which is 1-800-273-8255. And I would like for everyone listening to just lock that number in into their phones, because worst case scenario, 24/7, 365, that number right there can be a life changer. All right. If you're going through your own struggle, if it's one of your family members or friends going through their struggle, they can call that number at any time, and they can either walk you through what you got to do to help your friend or family member, or help you deal with your own struggle. And that has nothing to do with my company at all, but that number is very, very important, and I know it saved a lot of lives. As far as us, absolutelife.com is our website. Like you said earlier, Absolute is ABSOULTUE, life.com. And the way we spell it, ABS in all caps, because it's that better soul, you know, trying to create people to engage in being better and maximizing who they are as human beings. So that's our website, and through there you can see all of our workshops, and and contact us via email. You can also contact me by phone at 703-398-3045. And the workshops that we have obviously, a suicide prevention workshop. We also have a workplace resiliency workshop. We have one on team building and how to make your team and your employees or your coworkers or your partners work better as a team. We have a sexual harassment prevention workshop, which focuses on the morale factor more so than the legal aspect. Now we can touch on the legal aspect also, but those are pretty much black and white. And what I've also noticed is that when people talk about sexual harassment and assault, they come in and very stern and very strict and very much don't do it, which I agree with. But sometimes that approach can get lost. The message can get lost. So what we do is we talk about sexual assault, sexual harassment, and help people explore how it affects their day-to-day operations. You know what I mean? And their morale in their workplace. And of course, we have a self-care workshop, which pretty much encompasses. We call it healthy body, healthy mind, which is pretty much talking about the importance of physical fitness in preventing depression and preventing and preventing mental illness, which a lot of folks don't see the correlation in, but it's so key. And then the last one we have is workplace resiliency, learning how to bounce back from adverse situations in a manner that is helpful, in a manner that is productive, and in a manner that is quickly. So those are our 5 workshops right now. And yeah, that's it. And then again,
Wow.
absolutelife.com is the website.
AbsoluteLife.com.
Yeah.
Awesome. So there you guys have it. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, Miguel, I really applaud you for coming out and stepping up to provide a really good service for the veteran community, something that is
Thank you.
desperately needed out there. No matter where you are, you already know that he is already giving you the 1-800 number for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. He's also giving you about 5 workshops, no excuse, 5 workshops that you can
None.
go to help you with your mental health, your depression, your workplace,
Yes.
everything that you need to transition. And so, everybody who's listening to this podcast, please make sure that you check out his website, schedule a workshop, just go there and just you'd be surprised what information that you will learn out of that by just showing up. And
Yep.
also make sure you come out for the Veterans Bids Up Conference that's in August, which I know that there's going to be so many people there, including Miguel, who's going to be
I'll
there.
be
I'm going to
there.
be talking about you after the call. And just having career people, we're going to have so many great people there at the Veterans Conference. We're going to have people who are certified in career transition, in health and wellness. We're going to have the Department of Veterans Affairs. We're going to be having DAV. We're going to be having so many great people there. So it's going to be more on that as time go on. But Miguel, I really want to thank you for being on the podcast and just being a role model for everybody who's listening to this podcast and representing the veteran community. Really appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you back. Thank you for having me. I had a good time.